No, no. There's a 14-inch Watcher's table saw buried back there. The base is solid cast iron, and it's just the saw. It's the big break-in saw, but saw.
Yes, and it's just that there is the base.
No tin, no tin.
This is all cast iron. Why would you put a 40-pound door?
No tin. Very, a lot of people collect them. And they're good.
It's all about it's about
there's not much of a dust collection shoe on that.
The air.
Okay. This is a pretty rare Wadkin machine. And Wadkin, if you're not familiar with Wadkin, started maybe around, I think, 1897 in Leicester, England, under the name Wadkin and Company. And they started building pattern-making machines. Now, pattern-making machines were machines for the pattern maker. And the pattern maker was a woodworker, but he worked to a precision and made all the molds that you push into sand and pour cast irons. So they were very highly precision woodworkers. So these machines were made to a level beyond standard woodworking machines, to a level of engineering. So they were equivalent to metal cutting working machines for wood. Very expensive. Not very many people had these. That was a flourishing industry, and this is a pattern maker's jointer and planer. This joins and thicknesses. Okay? Its capacity on the top is 26 inches wide. We don't have too many boards that it can't handle. And it's 24 inches on the bottom, and we'll cut 9.5 inches deep. So she's got lots of capacity.
9.5.
9.5 inches thick. So it's a big beam. It's 4,000 pounds. There is not a single bit of plastic on this machine.
You got grommets here.
Oh, yeah. Now, this machine could be, this machine was originally designed in the 20s, and it was line belt. In fact, this machine could be line belt, and you'll sort of see the motors sort of look like they're afterthoughts, sort of just bolted on the outside. So up until the 50s, you could still order this for line shaft, okay? DC motor. This particular one is a 1941 model, so it's a pre-World War II. This was come out of the Hamilton area in one of the shipyards, so it was probably in a shipyard pattern shop. That's about as much as I know about it. It was also a 25 hertz electrical system machine. When Niagara Falls generated power, the very first generation was in 25 hertz, and if you don't know anything about electricity, we run on 60 hertz, and so that just means it's really old. If you was to have plugged this machine into our household, it would have ran 2.5 times faster. So when I got it, the machine's motors were all stripped off. There was a 2x4 under a 1-horse motor, which wasn't adequate, and the guy would crank the motor up and slowly drop it down onto the head as it came up to speed. But he had it, so. So this has been converted back into 60 hertz. I've collected motors. It's about a 3-year project. The head is very special. It's a patented head. It's 5 inches in diameter. Now, that's big. That's very big, okay? It spins at 5,000 RPMs. It only has 2 knives, but the rim speed of those knives is way faster than anything today. It's a plate-style head. I'll show you what that looks like. Now, this is like a hand plane. You can open the mouth openings. She'll slide horizontally. If you are doing special stuff, you can slide.
Takes 3 boys and a man to
It's,
move it.
this probably weighs as much as your joiner at home. Okay, so the head, it's a plate type head. So it's a square head style of head. In other words, the original heads were square head and they just bolted a piece of iron on it and had at her. But those were very dangerous in that they would grab. They were just big meat cleavers and people would lose their arms and stuff like this. So this is a 20s design that made it safety. Oliver, an American machinery factor who was also doing pattern work, had bought a German model plate type head. The Wadkin head is far superior to the to the Oliver head in that these little knives, remember this is a 1920s design, has little set screws here that go down and lock that blade in. So the plate doesn't hold the knife from slipping out. The Oliver planes were very dangerous, and then the radius head limits the cut. So, okay, and you'll also notice something really interesting here, that knife is not straight. It's actually skewed. Okay?
What do you expect for $100, Jeff?
Yeah, I know, it's a piece of junk, eh? Very interesting to set this head. You have to lock this down, and you have to actually mic each one of those. That knife actually has to be put in on a slight curve because it's biasing a circle at an angle. So the actual knife is not straight across. So you have to lock it here, to go to the next bolt. You crank the other side up till it reads, lock that bolt, and you just keep cranking it down until you go right across the table. Takes a little bit of time for 26 inches. Took me about a half an hour the first time I did it, but I was surprised how I got it within a thou. Okay? The machine is set up pretty rough right now. We don't have the pressure bar set, so I'll have to drag stuff. And it's doing a bit of a spring joint, but it will work. The other feature that's interesting is this has a section here, and you'll see 2 bolts here, and this can actually be removed. You don't upset the joiner knives, and molding knives can be put in there. Okay, so this is also a molder. If you remove the pressure bars, front and back, it'll cut 2 inches deep. Okay, and 12 inches wide. So it'll do parley milling stuff, no problem. Okay. That's just typical 1 inch, a ½ inch thick, square head stuff, just a block of steel, big bolt. Okay? We've made it to hold modern stuff just for convenience, but we are going to run square head moldings just because there's nothing that can reach that far out and cut that deep. I won't be demonstrating that, but if you stay in tune with my YouTube station, you can follow that along. And I'll be posting anybody that registered newsletters of what's going on with the Wadkin. So that's generally the head. And this head was in atrocious condition. There was a bolt missing, snapped off. I had a 4-foot pipe to remove the other bolts, so I really didn't trust those threads. So many people from around the world found old stock in old saw doctors around the world, and these bolts are original Wadkin bolts that are balanced, came all the way from Melbourne, Australia. I had a steam engine person in England make me the studs. They're a special stud, had to be made a certain way. I didn't tell him till the end what he was making. Because I thought he might not make it if he found out what, because these are illegal, of course, to run. And if you call Wadkin, they hang up the phone. Okay. They don't support any of this type. I think it's very safe. It's as safe as any other type, Don't be chance and got it right. Anyway, it has no collection. So this is no dust collection, but the machine has everything encased. Okay, you could pack that full of sawdust. All the threads that rise and fall are bronze, so you don't oil them. They're naturally lubricated, so you don't get anything coming out, and they're all encased inside columns, so it never gets. There's little oil caps. These are solid bronze bearings. I know someone was asking about that. Now, this is 70 years old. And this was not in someone's home shop. This thing got worked, okay? It got worked hard. But these were really special machines, so they didn't get put away wet. They got worked hard, but they're not a production machine. Thousands of feet didn't go through this. Big, precise pieces. So even though it looked terrible when I got it, the wear was hardly any at all. There was an 1/8 of an inch wear in the pressure bars that hold the wood down. We ground those out. The bearings, ooh, they were expensive. I didn't need them, but they're a double-rolled self-aligning bearing with machine bronze cages, and there's a big fat one in here that was $250, and they actually had to make it. I had to wait 3 months for they were going to make that batch. So it's called an obsolete bearing, but you can buy it as soon as they get enough of an order, and they'll make a batch. Then there's 2 other ones at the back. So this is a 3 bearing. They're about that big. Gorgeous looking bearings and beautiful. This will balance a dime starting up and shutting off, no problem. The fence, what makes it a pattern maker's is the fence. Very tall. Shorter than probably most people, and you can smack this fence with a 6x6 and it's still 90. Okay? There's no little set screws. There's no hold that handle and tighten up the handle. That's 90. There's no angle on this. 90 goes against a machine face. 45 goes against the table on a machine face. And it's scraped. There was guys with chisels that scraped it flat with blues and stuff like that. Bearings in this were scraped. All of the ways in here are hand scraped, and you can still see the sort of frosting of the hand scraping. So it's virtually made to never wear out. You cannot wear it out. The transmission is a huge bucket in the back there, filled with 2 gallons of oil, and it has a big, huge bowl gear that drops up onto a little trough, rolls down, oils a big chain. You can't wear it out. You cannot wear it out. It's impossible to wear out. You know, and this is about 150 pounds, and somebody could try it if you want. How, like this is just, that's 100, you can't pick that up, but you can just do that, okay? You know, so really nice. People were asking about these gates. This is what these are called. English put their fence on the front table. A lot of Americans put them on the back table. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. When it's on the back table, that's always tight, okay? What I found, because I own 2 types of machines, both front and back, is when I drop my table, there's always that gap here. And if I haven't edged the side of my thing, always my rough sand gets caught in that gap. Now sometimes, oh, again, there's a little sliver there, and then so that never happens. That never happens here. These are spring-loaded, so they can lift up, and of course they need to move out of the way because you're going to open the table to run moldings because they're sticking out. So this becomes your molding fence. These become little hold downs, and you feed this through. But this could be easily fed with a power feeder, and you could do massive circles horizontally. Okay, so it just has capacity beyond anything being built today. You can, of course, feed from the bottom, and there's little bolts in the tables that will allow you to jig up and run your molding. But of course, you could run curves. You have no limits on the top for curves. And we're going to use that for doing circles, and because you're horizontal, you don't have to do this. Right? So, and it's 2 inches thick, 12 inches wide, so we can make crowns, whatever the limits are. Now everybody knows that a joiner goes up and down, and you set the rear feed table, and you flatten that off. If you didn't, now you did. Okay. This is different. Look what this does. You say, why am I going to use that? Now that's pivoting off the back. This is another pattern maker's feature. Patterns were made to slip free from the sand, and this would put draft in your forms. So we can use, I don't know what we're going to use it for. Well, you know what? I just got to use it to show you guys, and I think it's pretty cool, okay? And there's a gauge here, and that pitches up pretty high. So I can put angles on this, but I can also do stop angles. So say I want to do a windowsill. I want it sloped like this, but then I want it to come straight back up. So there's some cool things I'm already thinking I can do it, and I can do them 26 inches long. So, you know, that's pretty decent. Another really cool thing that Adam found out yesterday, because we've just got this machine together, is here it is coming up and down, and I don't know if this is purpose, but I've done enough Wadkin machines to know that they do they're really picky about the way they do stuff. And when you're cranking this up and trying to find the scratch mark, you'll see that that's how much lash there is. This bolt doesn't have any lash. You see there's no lash in that bolt. There's only lash in this. Okay? But when I come back down to set this at 0, you go, well, how do you know you set it at 0? And now on my tables called planer. Oh my God, you've ruined it. I set up 3 days. Now look at that. See? Now look at lash. Now the bolt moves. That's telling me I'm at 90. I put a dial on it, and I just have to snug it, and it's actually within there's no evidence. I couldn't read it on one. Maybe Matt can, because he can divide my mistakes into 1 million. But I thought it was a real neat feature. It's just a big pin bar, and that's special. This was a special order to have that done. I've only seen 2 of these in Canada, and the other one did not have that. In fact, the people we talked to in England, very few had the pattern makers, and this is the only jointer that Wadkin ever made with a pattern maker's table. So it's really special in that regard. This is, of course, the largest planer Wadkin ever made. That's the very same planer, same family. That's a 16-inch, but it's only a jointer, which the English call a planer. But it's the same skewed head, 5-horse. That's what we've been using, as this is.
So that's a junior model.
Yeah, that's the little 16-inch. So if you'd like to see it plane some wood, I can do that. But you can't ask questions while I'm planing wood. So if you got any questions, I can answer some questions, and then I can turn. Yeah.
When are you going to start planing wood?
Okay. Yeah.
What, I like the color. What made you go from that shitty green to that nice color?
Okay, color's a really interesting topic amongst machine riskers. There's the school that says, hey, it's my machine, I can paint it whatever I want. Hey, I paid $50 for it. Yeah, right. Okay? And there's nothing wrong with that. We support all of that. I do both, but that's not exactly the original. It's hard to tell. A lot of this paint is of course, lead-based, right? The good stuff that kills people. And what I did is I removed the machine tags because we got no sunlight and matched that color, and actually found a stock color. That's called graphite, British, and up until the 50s and into the 60s, all English machinery was this color.
Oh, that color.
Yeah. So that's the color it would have come in.
Why do we see a lot of green?
In 1960s, the Germans had a big fair for woodworking, and I'm not sure what on it, but all the machine makers got together, and the Germans, showing off, said, woodworking machines should be green, and metalworking machines should be gray, and that started off. And it was a ruse for machinery dealers to paint their machines, would paint them green to make them look new, and to keep up the Germans.
That's my next question then. Are the Germans at the time producing the same high quality, or were they...
Germans making tractors. At this time, Germany's making tractors. Germany's didn't take off until the 50s. I remember, bombed to hell, right? England was just had the only surviving industry. That's why this is a 1920s design still being produced. Everything was blown up. So you got the old patterns, and they had to continue it on. There are still, for this era, like I've seen a 1950s Martin, okay, which is heavy stuff, and the German stuff is good, but the German, and this might be biased, I don't think that their stuff was as pretty. I don't think the pattern shaping, and so the British industry really had an eye for just all these little flares, and I have a lot of women who go, no, I don't really look at woodworking machines, but those are beautiful. So, you know, there's an attractiveness to them, you know, like, and there's a lot of stuff done in the British market that was literally done for looks. And it was a lot of work in the pattern shop and very expensive. German is a lot more square. It's machine. It's just a different. But not until the 50s and 60s did the German stuff start to really dominate the market, because they were using still old technology. Wadkin really didn't get along. You'll notice this is a short. It seems really short. Okay. You got to think about this is you're not really going to be dressing 26 inches wide, 16 feet along the hand. Okay, so you're usually going short pieces, and so you know they're not making patterns 16 feet wide. So it's smaller pieces, tall fences. But Wadkin did start to get into the longer heads, more than 2 knives, but not until the Italians and the Germans came in the 70s. So I collect that era, which is 50s.
Are they still in business?
Yes, Wadkin is a very successful business still today. They make modern machines, the molding machines, very expensive. Cheapest machines probably $20,000 to $30,000. Their head, you change their knives, you just pull it out. It's just a suction fit. And there you go, a big molder head set up. You know, big stacks of molders just drop onto things, so they just hire idiots. Put plastic in front of them and push buttons and look at computer screens. So this is really old. Okay, mind you, one of those heads is about $5,000 to cut a tendon, which this thing will do. So you know, but you need skill. So that's the way the world is going. I want to be self-sufficient too. I want to be able to, under my own power, sharpen my blades. I'm not saying that helical heads and insert tooling is not a good thing. It's just the advance of machinery, but it's removed us to have to buy something. And it really doesn't cut any better than this if you have the skills. And it'll last longer, and it's all of those things. And it does allow people who just are going in to have that precision instantly. But it's not better. It's just the advancement. It's safer, probably slightly safer, but it'll still chop you up, you know. So,
Jack, I think we're going to need to turn this speed.
okay, so let's plate some wood. This is what this thing does. Okay, now like I said, this is a 600 volt machine. So I don't have 600 volts here at the house. So I'm running it through a variable frequency drive with a transformer that we put together with industrial waste. So it's not pure power, it takes a little time.
So you're like the dentist, you're going into the other room while you turn it on?
Yeah, Jack, before you do that,
My electrical system is temporary.
Jack, you may want to adjust the input table.
Yeah, I'm going to adjust the table, and what I would like you to do is all stand over there. Okay?
Is this far enough away?
Yeah, that's far enough away. Anybody standing here is going to die. If anything happens, nobody's going to die over there. Okay, so I've just got the motor wired straight. So. Yes, that's 3-phase. Wadkin did not make anything. They were in the home market.
You may not want to be there.
They weren't in the home market. So, okay. So I have 2 motors. One runs the head, 5 horse, and I got the other one on a switch. I have to get that going so that it turns it. We're using it as a generator to start the next one. Okay? When you think it's reached speed, it hasn't. starting it. Danny Mac, well, we have a feeder where we just put the feeders in. So, yeah. I actually didn't find it. A friend of mine, Dave McLaren, who knew I was a Wadkin freak, found it. He knew I was looking for this. I posted that, hey, this is my dream machine. Anybody comes across it, never thought I would. He said, hey, there's one of those machines. And it was, the guy wanted $1,000 for it, which I would have paid. And it was just a rusty piece of junk. I didn't want to pay for it. So I didn't have money at the time, so I had to let it go. And Dave knew me pretty good. He's a good friend of mine. He said, well, I'll go look at it. He went and looked at it. He comes back. He says, well, I bought it for $150. So I go, well, I would have paid $150 for it. Yeah, Jack's pretty cool, man. Anyway, it's in my garage. I think I'm going to fix it up. This thing's really neat. So, a good one, Dave, right on. About a month later, he goes, this thing's too big for my shop, Jack. You can buy it. You do it and fix it up. I get the first chance to buy it. So he offered this up to me. And he asked me, he had a couple other machines, and he said, which one's the best? And I said, well, that's the best. It's the best one. But it was in atrocious condition. It was in atrocious condition. And this is running pretty rough, but it'll run smooth out of there. It's wicked.
And how long do you work to restore it?
Well, this November will be 3 years, but a year got took off. You'll notice that that's rusted. I actually had gotten it pretty close to being done. I didn't have the doors built in the shop, so the humidity was terrible. I got ahead of myself. But you have to get these machines when they're available. And so we stopped for a year to build doors, and we're ready to go. So we're running power to this, and some of these machines will go, but this will be the mill. So the big bandsaw and all of those things. 1,000 hours. But that's jackified. Okay, that means that's beyond showroom Wadkin. There's brass washers. Machinery's not painted to this level.
I just
Wadkin
want
never
to,
painted the red that clear.
I'm going to make an announcement.
Okay.
We have some ham and some sandwiches in the mess tent. So anybody wants to grab a sandwich, you can see, Jack, you can see how you compete against food for entertainment. And Mike is going to be starting any minute.